The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And here we are, episode 85.
85, yep.
And what is our topic?
This is healing ancestral karma. I can talk. Whatever.
Ancestral Karma.
Ancestral karma, yeah.
Cool. Well, you'll have to explain that to us.
Yes, definitely.
Very good.
Yeah.
Before we hop into that one, got anything from last week you'd like to share?
I do. So last week we did pet readings with Samantha.
Yep.
And I wanted to give some of the feedback here.
Very cool.
So if you remember, there was a duck named White Duck.
Yep.
And this was for Patricia. And she gave me some really good feedback. And, you know, I like doing these episodes for a couple of reasons. I like to show what is possible, you know, how we can take care of animals' problems with this.
Right.
But I also like people to see the process and to understand more about how these abilities work. Because I think that there's a lot of people that think that they're something different than they are. It's not like I have this whole, you know, everything laid out right in front of me. I have to analyze things. And so these readings that I don't have anybody there to talk back and to tell me, you know, to validate for me.
Sure.
It's interesting to see how the feedback is.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's like we feel like we're in a pandemic, kind of.
So from Patricia and White Duck, if you remember, I thought that White Duck was male. I kept calling it's female, her, he.
Okay.
And this is a good example of how energy works, because really it's hard to distinguish like male and female. Sometimes you can feel like the energy feels more male, but it's not necessarily meaning that it is a male. So this was a female duck.
Okay.
But with a male, more of a male personality is what she said. Okay. Really enjoyed the animal podcast because I always learn something when you talk to other people. As for White Duck, I definitely see her personality. She does kind of hang out in her pool because the chickens get on her nerves. When I feed her favorite meal of spaghetti and peas, she does charge them and tells them to get out of the way so she can get in there. And if you remember, I said that I saw her putting her head down and charging.
Right.
Yeah. Her friend Khaki, who is a brown duck, is very loud, and they are always together, so that's probably why she commented on the noise. I figured it had something to do with another animal, but I didn't think it would be another duck, you know?
Right.
They don't come off as really loud animals to me, but I guess anything could be loud. We do live in a rural area in the foothills on a small ranch, but we also live in the path of the air base for California fire, so at times it gets very loud. She probably likes the pools she has because she can get in and out. She can't get in and out of other pools by herself. Even after all these years, she still doesn't like it when I pick her up to put her in the water. But at night, it's cute because I will tell her to go to bed and she walks right into her crate. Many years ago, a weasel got into the coop and killed Kaki's sister. Oh. So White Duck has always been a little more protective, but it's hard for her nowadays because her legs are really bad, and they say the legs go a year or two before they pass. I am planning on having her cremated when she passes. I'm trying to come up with species that you haven't read. So, because she has a whole lot of animals. So then we just talked after that. But that was her feedback on White Duck.
Cool.
So I thought that was cool. I like the way
You're pretty on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she lets me know, like some people will just say, yes, I see, you know, what that means or whatever. I like how she really gets into explaining to me what I was seeing.
Right.
Because it isn't, I had no idea why White Duck was putting her head down and charging. I didn't see what was behind me, or, you know, I'm seeing from looking at her.
Right.
So to hear that that's what it is, it's bringing her favorite meal, that puts the puzzle together for me.
Exactly.
You know? So it's cool. So I really like those kinds of feedbacks.
Right.
So
didn't you say something about her laying eggs or something?
Oh, during the reading, I had said that I saw something inflamed in the stomach.
Okay.
And I did, to me, first impression, it looked like an egg, but I had it stuck in my head that this was a male for whatever reason. If I would have known it was a female, I would have said that there's an egg, and she seems to get egg bound for a while, so that's what that was about. But yeah, it's interesting, like situations like that where, you know, I don't always know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. And I have another really good one here for you.
Cool.
Okay, so Sherry had the dog with the allergies.
Right.
Okay, Harley's.
The sprinkles.
The sprinkles. The first thing that I saw was sprinkles. And all I knew was it was some kind of powder and sprinkles. I had no idea what it meant. And so I was trying to pull this apart. Like, maybe it's a carpet powder or whatever. It ends up that it was a powder that she used to put on the dog. So let me read this for you and I'll explain more. I listened to your show today. Thank you so much for reading, Harley. You mentioned baths and some kind of powder. I think he was showing you all the things we're doing for his itching. When it was still warm outside, I was bathing him in medicated oatmeal shampoo every week. It would help for a day or so, and then it would start again. I tried everything before taking him to the vet because he's so much to handle, and I knew they would put him on meds. So she went on to tell me about a lot of the other things that she's tried, and I really tried my best to help her. What was interesting was that the powder that I was seeing is actually a powder that I use for our dogs. So I sent the picture of it to Sherry, and she's like, that's the powder that you were seeing.
That's so
Like,
funny.
how funny. Yeah. But this is a very common problem with animals. And the reason why, like, I can tell you certain things about the allergies, how they're affecting the dogs. Or maybe if there's something that they understand is causing the allergy, like if they're laying in the grass and afterwards they've noticed that they're itchy. That's one of the ways that I get the information. But if they don't know, a lot of the times I have to do like a process of elimination. Just like with people, you know, we don't always know what we're allergic to, so neither do they.
Right.
And allergies are extremely difficult to treat. Even if you know what they are, it's like they are so hard.
It's a process of elimination. It seems like it goes on forever.
That's exactly right. There was a lady that posted in my free reading group the other day that her dog is having problems with its pads, the pads of its feet. And what I saw was there was something being put on the grass. And she thought, oh, maybe it's a pesticide. And I said, okay, so the first thing that you do is remove the pesticide. Well, you can't remove it from the grass, so stop the dog from going on the grass. And if that fixes the problem, then you know right there that was it. If not, then try next eliminating something else that the dog comes in contact with and see if that fixes the problem. It really is the only way to figure it out. And sometimes it's still impossible because there's multiple allergies involved, you know?
Yeah, she could be sprinkling stuff on her carpet before she vacuumed or whatever.
Exactly. They're so sensitive to all kinds of things. Like even, you know, the things you might not think about, like laundry soap. If you're washing their bed thinking you're doing a good thing by washing their bed, but you're using regular laundry soap and not free and clear stuff, that right there could cause some problems. So we have to kind of look deeper into the things that we may forget are, you know, not really great for sensitive skin.
Exactly.
So, yep.
Cool.
So that was Sherry. And so, yeah, I did get responses from pretty much everyone. They were, you know, things were accurate, of course. Those were the two that I felt like I really wanted to get into and explain.
Nice.
I did want to mention, though, that we talked about Chelsea and her cat, Puff, and that I felt that the cat had been put down, or that was what was getting ready to happen, and they did have Puff put down. So we're very sorry for your loss, Chelsea.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, you know
Sorry.
that it's very hard losing any animal, but this one had a special place in her heart, so
Yeah.
I know she had a tough time. But
Well, and it always will.
yes, absolutely.
So.
It's always around.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all I have for you.
Cool. Well, then, how about episode 85 and healing ancestral karma?
Isn't that a hard word to say? Why is it so hard to say?
Yeah, because you don't know after the
Ancestral. Right.
which way you were going after
Exactly. I don't know. All morning I'm like, say it right. So if I say it wrong, whatever. Okay. So this topic is new to me, and this is very surface information, very layman's terms. I tried to make it as basic as I could for myself and for everybody else, because most of the people that took the polls this week, they had never heard of this before. So I definitely want to, do that. But I also have come across a friend of mine that I didn't know that this is a lot of what she works on. So we're hoping that we can figure out how to have guests on our show and then have her come on and explain the more,
Right.
extensive stuff that I don't really understand yet.
Cool.
So what is ancestral karma
Yes.
and why is it important? So we hear things all the time like a family curse. Okay, that's not what this is, but we hear that term, or we hear it runs in the family, or different terms like that. And that's because these things do. We carry things down from our ancestors. But simply put, this is the sum of all lessons that your soul family members failed at in their lifetimes. Healing ancestral karma helps children and future children, brothers and sisters, parents, and the entire ancestral line heal from any negative past trauma by healing your energy. You know what? Our great date is snoring up a storm. But I'll tell you what. When I listened to last week's episode,
Sorry, I can't help it. But
I know. When I listened to last week's episode, I didn't hear him. So I don't think that they can hear him. If you can,
Okay.
we really apologize, but I don't think they can.
okay.
So I'll listen back
I
and be like,
didn't mean to
"Aw."
break the concentration,
That's
but I was
okay.
trying to ignore it.
I can see it in your eyes because he's really going at it, man.
Yeah.
He's sawing logs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyways, so where was I? Let's see. Okay, so it helps everybody in the ancestral line when you heal this karma.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about karma. We know what karma is.
Mm-hmm.
There's good karma and there's bad karma. And so basically what this breaks down to is like if there's things that, let's take my grandmother, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that my grandmother did in her life that I have repeated. Things that she didn't maybe learn from.
Yeah.
Things she never healed. So because she didn't heal them, they were
Right.
passed down.
Right.
They were passed down to my mother too, but in a different way.
Right.
Basically my situation pretty much resembled my grandmother's situation with a few minor exceptions.
Right.
And I always tripped on that. I was always like, how is that possible? Well, this is how it's possible.
Right.
Because what this karma is now, I'm dealing with all of their karma too. Everything that they didn't learn. We all are, you
Right.
know? So it's baggage on us. And sometimes we can see where these things come from.
Right.
Like me with my grandma. And sometimes we can't.
Right.
And when we do shadow work, like we talked about last week, that's when this comes in.
Right.
When you're doing the shadow work and you notice that there's something about yourself that needs to be fixed. And then you look at it and you go, well, where did this come from? Mm-hmm. Is this something that my mother taught me or my father taught me or my great grandparents? You know what I mean? Like it
Well,
can
you
be
kind of
passed
have a
down.
more unique situation in the sense that you lived with your grandparents for a period.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting that relationship like a guardian, just like you, when you live with your mom,
Yes.
you're, have that relationship as a guardian
Yes.
with her. So you kind of had both of them as a parental thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and one thing that I found interesting, and I didn't read this, this was something that I learned from Teresa, the lady that I'd like to have on the show, is that, so you can, like, she has adoptive parents, okay? So you have things that come in your DNA from your biological parents, but if you have adoptive parents, then you're also taking some of their karma too, because you're picking up their energy from things that have happened in their life. Just because you're not DNA, it doesn't mean that you're not picking up, their stuff.
Right.
And it's being passed down to you.
Sure.
It's a very interesting concept. It's very extensive. Like, it could go on and on if you really want to pull this subject apart.
Yeah, because I feel like it extends. It's not, you mentioned something at the beginning about, phrases we've heard in our lives, like, oh, it runs in the family. Genetics is one thing, but this is something maybe different too.
It is, oh, absolutely.
But you can't help there being genetics involved.
Yes. That's where there's a whole lot of things involved here. And I know that when you really get into energy healing, you do talk about how these things are passed down in your DNA, how the traumas are passed down in your DNA.
Right.
So, like, a lot of the resolution for these situations is, like, clearing that energy out. And that's what my friend Teresa does. She clears out the energy, and we'll get into that more later.
Cool.
But that's what I mean. It is very extensive. I don't know anything about how it works with the DNA. And I also, I'll throw this monkey wrench in there. We're not just talking about this life. We're talking about multiple lives.
Yeah.
However, I don't have any experience really with past lives yet, so we're just going to talk about, this life today.
Right.
And then
Sure.
we can get into that later. But it does encompass that.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, if you have things that you don't understand where they came from, they could have also come from a past life. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so let's see. All right, so pain, trauma, limiting beliefs, and family patterns can imprint on your nervous system. And this is kind of what I was talking about it being genetic, and be passed down from generation to generation. These imprints weigh us down and limit our experiences of living. They prevent us from creating the us we truly deserve to be and desire to be. It does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of times where you've said to me too that there's certain things about your life that have mirrored your father's. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe you can see a little bit more how that works and why it's being thrown at you and,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I asked our listeners if they saw things in their lives that, maybe they got passed down from their ancestors, certain things that they picked up on, kind of like, what I said with my grandma.
Right.
And let's see, Chris had a really good response to it. She said, one of the patterns that she had is being with narcissistic men. And she said, I finally realized it was my fear of being alone, probably because I've seen my mom struggle with her marriages to my father and stepdad, and her basically raising 3 of us by herself. This is very common with women where, they have this kind of struggle. They see their mom going through something or it's in their life somehow, and they repeat it.
Right.
I've done it. I do it. I mean, these are,
I think that's a human trait in a lot of ways. I think that ancestral karma, again, it has, I got to go back to this for a second. It has a lot to do with genetics, but then it has nothing to do with genetics.
Right,
because you could be adopted and still have ancestral karma to deal with.
Right.
That could be things that you learned from your adoptive parents. That could be things you learned from a past life.
Right.
When you had blood relatives. But that part of kind of what you were saying, it still rings true with this. Mm-hmm. It's like, this isn't solely genetic. It's a lot of...
it's a lot of stuff.
As children, we absorb so much without realizing we're actually absorbing it.
Absolutely, we do.
And then it starts to manifest and show itself in our personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we can do, and we will talk about more later, but one of the things with this kind of trauma and karma is you can go to like a past life regressionist or somebody that will, take you back to see it, not even past life, but okay. So for example, I've talked about this, that my therapist said that there were going to be things in this process for me that I was going to start to see from my childhood that I hadn't seen before, things I don't remember. And I was going to start to have visions of those. Okay. So that's happening now. And I'm seeing now what I didn't understand before, because there's certain things about me that I was like, why am I this way? And then I thought, okay, well, I'm that way because of abuse that I suffered. Well, no, that's not the case. I'm this way because of what I saw. What I was taught at a very young age is a part of it.
Yes.
Things that I didn't remember that I saw that have been imprinted on me, even though I don't remember them.
Absolutely.
So that's a part of this too. We carry those things around too.
Yeah, it's an imprint on you. It's like data in your base.
Right, exactly. So let's see, what are some indicators that you have some of this baggage or trauma that needs clearing, some of this ancestral karma? Well, replicating habits or coping strategies, like we were saying. You know, for example, one of the things that my mom used to do as a coping mechanism was go shopping. And that's something that wherever it came from seeing it, from, you know, this is karma that she didn't learn. This is more what I'm trying, you know, starting to see more of too in my life, is that this was something that she never learned. She never stopped doing that. She always, you know, tried to buy happiness with money. So she never fixed that. That was her karma, her lesson that she didn't learn, that was passed down to me. So now I'm working on that, and I've been working on that. I didn't know why I was working on that, but now it makes perfect sense that it's not just to improve my life, but it's also to heal something that she never was able to heal.
Right. It is. It's a trait, something you've learned, whether it's she is your biological mom, so there is some genetic involved there. Then there's this learned behavior aspect of it. So it's like a mixing pot.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. You have patterns of belief you feel you were born with. And I think that, like, a lot of people have these, they look back and they think, well, where did my religious beliefs from? Or where did my, whatever belief about, like, people that don't believe, you know, in gay marriage or whatever, where did that belief come from? Can you trace it back? Well, that could be something, again, that you have to learn because a family member didn't learn.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
You're healing that. So that's another thing to look at. Let's see. Thinking about your family history and it feels heavy. I get that. I can understand that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm trying to work on that too. Like, trying to give my mom the benefit of the doubt for some of the things, you know? Things that I didn't repeat.
Right.
Because it does kind of, it lessens the heaviness of it.
Right.
This is such an important part of the work that we do in the spiritual journey. Now, you don't have to do this. You can be a spiritual person and not continue to grow. But if you want to continue to grow, the shadow work and the ancestral karma healing, cleansing, this is important stuff.
Right.
And it's very hard. It means picking yourself apart. It means confronting things that you don't want to confront.
Yeah.
And it's not easy at all.
And I find it really interesting how much, like you said earlier, that our lives mirror the lives of those that were close to us.
Yep.
And it's sort of this chain reaction, like you mentioned, how my life and the way it's kind of worked in some ways does mirror my dad's.
Yep.
And then in some ways his life and situation is mirroring his mom and her father.
Yeah.
And in that situation. And that I'm also very, Marina's situation sort of mirrors my situation growing up.
Mine too.
So it's kind of mind-blowing.
Isn't it though? Yes. And that's another piece, is that Marina very much was brought into my life. I mean, for a few reasons, but this is definitely a part of that trauma healing, is that because we have had a lot of the same experiences, I'm able to look at it differently for her. Right. It is also a trigger for me, which is, it makes me have to work on this stuff more. And, you know, the way that it's worked out in, like, the timelines of our life, it's like, this is the perfect time for me to be coping with this, if you think about it, because, you know, but it's all wrapped up in your soul family, you know, and it can be anybody. It could be your great grandparents, something that you don't even realize, you know. That's
what's amazing, and that is more convincing for me about that soul family aspect, is that even though these situations and the people closest to me were mirroring each other's lives, yet there's other outside people that come in, you know, like we talked about in your movie, like their other role. They seem like outsiders, but they are indeed part of that soul family.
Right, absolutely.
So without their interaction in these situations, it would not mirror the way that it appears.
Right. No, exactly.
So they are indeed very much involved.
Yeah. And your soul family can be people that you might not even think about as
Right.
being your soul family.
Exactly.
You know,
Or
it
people
gets
you maybe don't
complicated.
want to say that are your soul family.
Yeah, exactly. You know, in doing this research too and learning about this, I've told you guys many times that I did not want biological children because there were so many things that I was afraid of passing down genetically. And now I look at it and I feel like it's also a stop. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, anything that I wouldn't have learned in this life, it's going to pass down to my kids. I hope it doesn't pass down to Marina. It might. But this was a point
Right.
for me to stop. Like, I don't know why, but I've always wanted to stop the madness, stop this bloodline. It needed to be stopped, you know?
Right.
And it makes more sense to me now why I felt that way. And I think my brother feels that way too, because he's 33 and has no interest at this point, it doesn't seem, in having kids.
Right.
There was just something that happened to us, I think, where we were like, okay, let's put a halt on this family bloodline and stop the karma.
Right.
You know?
Reconvene there.
Exactly. It's a lot deeper than I thought it was, because I always, you know, was worried about the genetics or my mom's like mental health, like passing that down, or just not knowing how to be a mom because she wasn't really a mom, you know. But I see now it's much deeper than that.
Oh, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, it's crazy, the realizations that you come to through the spiritual awakening process.
Yeah, and just realizing how much you are affected by, you know, as you get older, your memory fades.
Oh yeah.
So you don't remember all these particular instances per se, unless you're doing something like this,
Right.
you know, or just by chance happen to jog a memory. Sometimes that happens, you know, like I said that to you the other day. What was it? I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about this
Oh, I can't remember, but
until I saw it. And it was like, wow, that happened.
yeah,
I
isn't
forgot,
that weird?
you know?
Yeah, I've had some triggers like that lately too. I had this ET beanbag chair and I saw a picture of it on Facebook and I had totally forgot about that thing, and it was like instant, oh my God,
Right.
I have one of those. How cool is that? You know?
But so much is, it's just proof that so much affects you, but you don't necessarily remember it.
Right.
But the effect has already taken place.
Yes. Something I want to point out, because you said, you know, as you get older, you lose your memory more and more. With a spiritual awakening, it is a side effect or a symptom of the spiritual awakening. Because they're trying to teach you, or your brain is trying to teach you, you know, to reprogram that you don't live in those memories anymore. You live
It's the
now.
now.
Right. So it seems silly, but I understand
Yeah,
how
makes
it
absolute
works.
sense.
Yeah. So if you're going through this process and you feel like you're losing your memory, it could be because of this, for sure.
Right.
Maybe not all of it, but
Right.
this
It could be a
yeah.
little bit old.
Yeah.
Like me. No, just kidding.
Yeah, it happens to all of us. And then the last thing that I had on this list of things that might indicate that you need some help with this is that you feel stuck and don't know why. When you start doing this shadow work, I feel like my progress is moving so much faster now that I'm doing this, and I don't feel stuck in that way. I mean, sometimes I still feel stuck because we're dealing with the Rona and nobody can go anywhere, and life seems kind of on hold in those ways. But when you work on this stuff, it really does, like, it pushes you. It moves your life. It moves you forward. So if you feel like you're stuck and nothing's moving and you're just like, I don't know, this is probably something that you need to look into, that you're repeating a pattern that maybe you don't even know that you're repeating.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good point.
Yes. Let's see. So I wanted to, before I forget, I've talked about my friend Teresa, that she had commented on one of the polls in the discussion group, and it sounded like she really knew what she was talking about on this subject. And I didn't realize that this is a lot of the kind of work that she does. She does where she helps people to kind of figure out what the problem is. She does it with animals too, and I don't know how that works. Don't ask me. But she does energy clearing of animals and of people. So before I forget, I wanted to give her information.
Cool.
Her name is Teresa Snyder, and she her page on Facebook, you can find her there. It's Teresa the Animal Intuitive. Or you can email her at hello@theanimalintuitive.com.
Wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah, like I said, I really want to have her on the show because I'm not really familiar with what she goes into.
Right.
She sent me some voice memos, and I was listening to those, and I was getting so confused by them that I'm like, I'm not even going to try and break this down. But it really does go back to, you know, your family.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how that works with the animals. That's what I really want to know. I want to have her on the show because I want to talk about how does this work with the animals and why. Why are they involved? You know?
I would love to hear the process of clearing, you know, humans' energy.
Yes, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I think, how much time do we got left? Yeah, we got plenty of time, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. So sometimes I just jot down little notes, and the next note that I had was, working through family karma can be a long, drawn-out process filled with shadow work that requires patience, self-awareness, and forgiveness. And yes, we just talked about that kind of, but the forgiveness I forgot about. You have to really learn how to forgive your people that you never received an apology from.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard to do. Nobody's asking you to accept what happened or to say that it was okay.
Right.
You know, but to release them with that is very helpful to their soul and to ours, really. Because we carry that. We really do. Even with living people, when you can't forgive somebody, you carry that around. It's heaviness. Mm-hmm. So when you can release it, it lightens that load for you.
Yeah.
And
it may be somebody that's still alive that just isn't there yet.
Yeah.
You know, and you're never going to get that from them.
Yep.
And it's just okay.
This is kind of called honoring, I would say, what I was just talking about. So you have to honor the situation, and that means to not condoning the situation, but instead it means that you accept that it happened and that you're ready to let it go. Because you can't fix a situation if you don't want to let it go. And we did a whole episode on that. Mm-hmm. And do you see how these episodes kind of happen? They do happen in the order that they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And as they evolve in our lives, then we can do the episodes on them.
Sure.
It's just, you know.
Remarkable.
Right, isn't it? I think so. Okay. So let's see. So now let's talk about what you wanted to talk about. How to work on clearing or healing your ancestral baggage. First, you have to identify the problem. And we've talked about that. Then you have to identify the belief in the problem. What is your take on the situation? Because sometimes we want to just see our side of the story. Right. We want to just believe that this is it. We're not looking at it from, you know, that maybe we are healing somebody else and what happened to them. Or what we didn't see on the other side, what their side of the story was, you know?
Yeah.
And then you have to call it out. Once you've identified the toxic pattern you want to step out of, you can see where it's coming from. Step back and look at yourself. See your ego, set your ego aside and be aware of your words. Are you replicating the way your parents acted? That's a really good question. I used to catch myself a lot doing little things that my mom did, and you don't want to accept that you're doing those things. But once you do and you say, I'm just going to stop that next time that I see that come up, instead of pushing it down and saying that you're not doing that,
right.
it starts to move this process too.
True.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you admit your own faults? That is very important as well. You can't admit that you have your own faults, then how can you get past them?
Exactly. And you got to be able to forgive yourself for that too.
Yes.
So it takes, you know, self-forgiveness, forgiveness in general,
yes.
and admitting your own faults. If you're expecting someone to apologize to you for something, maybe there was something you did to them as well. Right.
Exactly. Also, are you willing to change your behavior? You and I talk about this a lot because, you know, you've watched me kind of go through this, and we both have. We've both worked a lot on changing behavior patterns. But sometimes I tell you, man, this is so hard. Yeah. This is like one of the hardest things that I've done because it is confronting everything. It's confronting myself. It's confronting my past and my family history. And some days it's really, really hard work. So you have to decide, are you up for this challenge?
Right. Because it's situation after situation. That's what life is. Throws situations at us.
Right now I feel like this is almost a full-time job for me. I know that might sound weird, but I feel like every time that I'm coming out of one lesson, I'm being thrown right into another one.
Yes.
I'm not even when I'm like done with the other one.
Yes.
So I'm exhausted, man.
It's like, where's the reprieve?
Right? I just want a vacation.
Right.
You know, can I leave my brain at home too? But I know that once I get through the bulk of this, there will be that. There will be, you know, peace of mind. That's really, I think, what we're working towards in this is learning peace of mind and how to put all of these issues behind you, you know, heal your karma, heal your energy.
I've been fortunate enough in my life to have been able to go to a lot of therapy and talk about my feelings.
Yeah.
So I wonder for people that have never, ever set foot into an environment like that and have never shared, you know, one-on-one at that level with somebody, what that must be like. Because I've spent a lot of time with the things that have affected me in my life.
Yep.
I have. I was fortunate enough at a young age to be able to do it, you know. So was I thrilled about it at the time? Probably not so much. But I can see the benefit that it had for me to be able to sort of regurgitate my thoughts and feelings out onto a table in front of me and somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, because sometimes you just need to hear yourself get it out. You know, like now my therapy sessions every week, I feel like they're work. I prepared, I know I'm going to cry because this is what we're working on. And so I'm ready for it. But this isn't what I did in therapy before. And, you know, then I feel like I just kind of talked about the issue but didn't really deal with it. This is really dealing with it. And that's hard, you know. But it is very important to talk about whatever it is, you know, that you have inside, because it does build, like, you know, if you don't get it out, it builds and builds and builds and builds until it comes out some way.
It's going to come out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's see again how to work on clearing this. Forgiveness, not revenge. Okay, so you forgive your ancestors for what they did. I was reading a couple of examples. I was, you know, thinking we probably have a lot of life examples and things that we could throw at people, but I wanted to see what other lessons there were, whatever. And there was somebody that was talking about that their great-great-grandparents had slaves. And because that was never healed, they have issues now in their life. And sometimes those issues even transform into health issues.
Wow.
And healing that karma can help the health issues. So this is definitely a place where if you feel like there's just, you're not, something's just not working.
And those health issues can be passed down genetically.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is that you have to forgive your ancestors. Like in this case, some people might have a hard time even forgiving their ancestors for having slaves, but you have to. You have to say, okay, you didn't know better. You didn't learn from this. So I'm going to help you learn from this. However that is, I need to do it. You know, luckily it's not an eye for an eye in this where, you know, somebody that's dealt with that has to deal with slavery in this life because, you know, we're past that. But there's different things that, like health, that you might have to deal with, you know, absolutely. So once you heal your trauma, I've noticed that too. My health has definitely gotten better. My blood pressure has gone down. A lot of reasons, but maybe healing that karma also has something to do with it.
It's tough if, you know, the person's past, that you have some sort of strife or issue, some, you know, resentment or unsaid feelings. That's tough. And how do you get to that point, you know, where you can accept an apology you never gotten? For us, it's a little different, I think, now, because now you can sort of tap into that person's energy and know that that's not how it is any longer.
Exactly.
So whatever feeling about the situation that's lingering is most likely my feeling.
That's right.
On the situation. One example that just popped in my head, it's really simple, but one of the times we started doing readings, this is a while ago, but we were doing a reading and you were looking at some pictures and talking to some of my family members, and I remember connecting to my mom's youngest sister, who passed away maybe a couple years ago. I don't know, 5 years ago. And she was the youngest, and she was really fun, you know.
Yeah.
She had so much energy. She did a lot of drugs, so that probably had a lot to do with it. But she was the youngest out of all the aunts and uncles, and she was just so much fun. We loved being around her. And then one day, you know, she had a couple kids, and one day the drugs got to be too important, and she left and never came back. And it was always like those moments, like Christmas, when she would say, and I would be looking at her son, her oldest son, I'm going to go out for a little while. And we would always be like, come on, just hang out here. We're having fun, you know, don't go.
Yeah.
And she'd go, you know. But she would usually come back. But this one particular time, she had now a second child. And he was 2 or 3. And she had the arrangement with the father who she wasn't with. Oh, I'll drop him off. You pick him up. Well, she wasn't there to pick him up, and she never came back.
Wow.
And that one really sucked for me. Kind of like, I was like, because you were my aunt. I loved you.
Yeah.
And I loved being around you. I had fun. I think the last time I saw her at my grandmother's funeral, I didn't like being around her.
Yeah.
But, because she was, whoa.
Yeah.
But it was cool to be able to say that to her.
Yeah.
Even in this session we did where you connected, it felt like I could just let it go at that point.
Right.
I didn't carry that around anymore. After that moment, I was like, I had it, even though I wasn't face to face with her, I could feel her energy. Luckily for me, I had you to kind of respond.
Yeah.
You know, what she was sharing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really anything I didn't know.
Right.
I think intuitively, but
hearing it from her and getting, you know, what you needed out of it,
yeah,
it was healing.
I think what was most important wasn't that I wanted an apology to, and this is another thing to look at, is I didn't necessarily 100% all of me in that situation want just an apology about it, as much as I just wanted to share with her how much I really loved her.
Yeah.
You know, like just the effect that she put on me.
Right.
And her humor and just her fun.
Right.
She was really fun. And not to take anything away from my other aunts and uncles, because they all were special in their own way. She just was closest in age to us.
Right.
And, you know, she wasn't afraid to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why, like, psychic readings, medium readings are very healing. And I wish that more people knew that and did it, because it is also a way to clear this energy, because you are connecting and you are, you know, getting those apologies or giving whatever it is that you guys need, that you need with that particular spirit. That's what we do.
Right.
That's why I love this job, because I can kind of help that. And that can very much help these karmic lessons as well.
Right.
You know, because sometimes you don't even know, like, well, okay, let me say this, first of all. When we get to the other side, we see things very, very differently. It's not the same person. I mean, we are, but we're not. You're not going to the other side, and if you had a family member that you didn't get along with, that person still doesn't like you on the other side. That's not how it works. They forgive, and they forgive us, they forgive themselves, they forgive the situation, they see the bigger picture of it.
Right.
So a lot of times they will come to us, you know, people like myself, and we can do this kind of healing because they do want to heal that for the person. It's very important, really.
Sure.
And then you can see how that would also clear their karma.
Right.
But my point being that we have to change maybe the way that we think that they think, you know, that you still have those things that, you know, that you're arguing about. Like my aunt, she's still alive. We don't get along. I'm not even bothering anymore.
Right.
But I can't wait until I can talk to her when she's on the other side and we can put it behind us.
Yeah.
You know, I hate that it has to be that way, but she's just impossible to deal with.
Right.
But we will heal it. See what I mean?
Yeah.
When she gets there, she's not going to feel the same way about me that she does here. She's going to see the bigger picture. So that's what I mean by that is when they're there, if you have things that are left unsaid, you can be 100% sure that they've let it go.
Yeah.
So even if you if you need the healing and you can't go to a medium or whatever, you can do this yourself with them because you can just assume, because we know that they forgive you and they forgive themselves. So you talk to them and give your apology, give whatever it is that you need to give to heal your own self. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And then, it's accepting the apology that you never got, but you can assume that you're getting it because that's what heaven's about.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like you at your best, without ego, without resentment, without anger, without pain. It's you at your best.
Right. And what we're striving for when you have this spiritual awakening and decide to go through this process of enlightenment, we're striving to be as close to that as we can. And it is hard, man. So I'm looking forward to when it's not so hard, but it's a challenge. It's what we're here for. It's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
We're supposed to learn from these and deal with these struggles and, So.
Not one of us has or ever will walk this planet will ever be perfect.
No, not at all.
And that nobody.
Far from it. Yeah, nobody. Yeah.
Anybody that's on this, that takes a body, will not be perfect.
Yep. That's right. Because you wouldn't learn from that. That's just heaven.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, we're talking about forgiveness. If you don't forgive, you will be a prisoner of your past. And that's quite obvious that if you're thinking about the past all the time, you're a prisoner of it. You have to let it go. It heals you.
Yeah.
You have to let it go. And then let's see. So clearing take responsibility for your happiness. Happiness lies inside your perception of the present moment. I like that. When I read that, I was like, I gotta write that down.
It truly does.
Right? Find new, healthier ways of responding to the trauma triggers. Because we all have them. We all have those things that we're like, this just sets me off. I don't know why, but it just does.
Yeah.
And you have to find new ways to deal with that.
Yeah.
Life becomes more peaceful when you follow these kinds of things. When you start to learn that not everything needs, a response or whatever. If you can't put out the positive, you kind of learn just not to deal with it at all or not say anything at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to make everything positive, I feel like. And this kind of work helps that. It helps you heal that.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. What else do I have for you? I came across a book that I wanted to share. I didn't get a chance to read much of it, just like the first little bit. But it's called Healing Ancestral Karma, and it's by Dr. Stephen Farmer. And if you search for that, the Healing Ancestral Karma free download, you can download this book for free.
Wow.
So there's no reason not to. And then maybe it'll give you a lot of things that we didn't give you here. Some of the other things that they say that you can do to help to put this into process is yoga, mindfulness. Mindfulness is changing every time that you have a negative thought, you change it. I mean, that's just basic.
Right.
We did a whole episode on it, but past life hypnosis. I'd like to try that sometimes. I'd love to find somebody that does that.
I really want to do that.
We need to find somebody that does that and have them do it for us.
I wonder if you could contact, I forget her first name, Dolores' daughter.
Oh, Julia?
Because I bet you she could recommend people.
Well, they actually have a whole class. So that's like a whole thing put together for Dolores and, teaching the past life regression. So not only does she know people, but there's whole websites full of people that have taken these courses. Right. So I'll definitely be able to find somebody. It's just a matter of, maybe we could get somebody on the show. They could help us with this too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a couple other things, like I said, psychic readings, coming to a medium, or therapy, talking to somebody, just getting it out, dealing with it, accepting that it's there and talking about it to somebody.
It just, you have to come to a point somewhere with each one of these situations, and that's why they come up in our life, is because there's a lesson there. But to choose to whether you're going to cloud your mind and your memory and your inside with this, it takes energy.
Right.
It takes energy to carry this around, constantly worrying and thinking.
Right.
As opposed to facing it. And you can just kind of, envision myself just kind of taking off a backpack and putting it on the ground.
You know, and it feels like that too.
Yeah.
A lot of the times. Like, I've worked now with this, not really realizing that I was healing them as well until just recently. But I've worked on a lot of things myself, and that's what it feels like. Every time you realize that there's something else that you've healed or you've put in behind you, it's like a weight lifted off your shoulders. It doesn't mean you're never going to think about it again or you're never going to revisit it.
It's a different feeling, though. Once and that was my point, is that with each one of these situations, because they are a lesson that we're supposed to face and learn, you have a choice.
Yeah.
So you could face it and try to work through it, deal with it, so you can get to that point where you can put it down.
Yep.
And leave it there. And then it's not putting the weight and the burden on you. It's not taking up the space and time in your mind.
Right, exactly. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. There's been times where I've thought about giving up, like, on certain things that I've been working on. And because it's just too difficult. Like, one of them is that because of, like, how my mom was, she was very overbearing. And so I just was, compliant. I complied with everything. I never really spoke up for what I needed. And so now I'm trying to learn in my life to speak up, to say what I need, to put it into motion so that I have what I need. And that may sound easy, but it is not. No. When you were taught your entire life to just keep your mouth shut, that's what you learn. It's why I don't like confrontation, because I just don't do well with it. So now I'm learning to try and voice myself a little bit better. And it is very difficult, and I have thought, this is too much work. Yeah. But I will continue to work on it until it's not an issue anymore.
And that's what we're trying to teach Marina, too. Is the same thing, is just speak up for what, use your voice.
Use your voice,
in a respectful way, but...
Yeah, exactly. We all have our own lessons, our own things that we have been taught or we're dealing with. For some people, it's the complete opposite. They don't have a filter, and maybe they need to learn to be a little bit more toned down. We all struggle with different things in different ways, and, a lot of them are passed down, a lot of them are learned. Whatever the case may be, they are all healable, and once you do that, you do feel much, much better. Like that backpack lifted off your shoulders. I can't wait until I can say that I've completed that particular one of, being able to really voice my opinion and ask for what I want. That's going to be miraculous to get through that and to be able to, I don't even know what that's going to feel like, but I'll keep striving for it. As hard as it is.
As you should.
Right. And that's what other people need to do too. We all need to do it. We all need to push through whatever it is that is so difficult for us, because there is another side to it. And once you get to the other side, that feeling of relief is just so much better.
I mean, it's like we've said before on here, I know that our past doesn't define us.
No, not at all.
But our past has affected us.
Yes.
And it can continue to affect you. And maybe if you allow it, you can let it define you if you choose not to acknowledge it.
Right.
Or
absolutely.
face it.
I think that a lot of people believe that paying tribute to their dead ancestors means repeating a pattern. You see that a lot in people that don't believe that slavery should be abolished, because their ancestors did it, so why shouldn't they too?
Right.
This is what we have to heal, is that thought. It's not supposed to be that way. Right. There's things that our ancestors want to pass down that they want us to keep, but not these types of things, not the negatives,
Right.
The positives. Find the positives. Honestly, I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. Okay. So I just heard this. So my family is from Holland. I've talked about that. The older I get, the more I really am drawn to my culture. And we used to get boxes. My grandma would get them once a year. At this time, it's Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
It's the Dutch Christmas tonight and tomorrow. So every year we got a box with goodies, all kinds of Dutch treats in it. And then as I got older, and that just stopped, right? And so then this year I had this really strong urge to do it. And I was trying to find a pre-made box or whatever. I ended up putting one together, and I just now realized that that's because those are the type of traditions that they want us to carry on.
Right.
They don't want me to carry on the things like carrying my mom's pill bottle around.
Right.
They want us to do things like this. So that's why I was pushed to do that during, while I'm going through this, is showing me
Sure.
these are the things we want you to carry on. They may have fallen out, but carry them on. Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Trip.
Very cool.
So carry on those wonderful things that your relatives had instead of the negatives. And
Because that in itself will heal the karma.
that's right. Absolutely.
Will help. That's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Because I've known people in my life that, like you said, they honor their loved ones by continuing it.
Yes.
I mean, I've even known people that said my loved ones were as such when they weren't. And I'm going to continue this, but behind closed doors, they were actually continuing the way their loved ones really acted.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Right, exactly.
It will be a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. But we can heal it. We can fix it for them, for us, for everybody, and live happier lives. Because that's really the purpose of being here, is to figure this out so that you're happy, so that you can live your life in peace.
Right.
Sometimes that feels weird because there's so many people out there that don't live their lives like that, that I feel like the minority, which we really are. Right. I'm striving for something that most people will never have because they don't want to put that work in, or they don't even know it exists. So I kind of feel guilty for that, in a weird way. But I'm like, man, I put the work into this, and I'm going to enjoy my happiness and my peace.
Yeah. If like, our stories are totally different, as they should be. We're two different people. You kind of said at the beginning of this episode that, you knew at a young age that, having children of your own wasn't for you. My mission, I knew at a young age, at the times that some of these traumatic things were happening to me, I heard, I will never do this to my own.
Yes.
So I already knew that my goal was, my lesson in this life was to have my own and not repeat those same things.
Yep. You're right. Absolutely.
And knock on wood, so far I've done okay.
No, you've done a great job. Absolutely.
But,
and that's healing.
But we
that
each
karma.
have a path and a job and lessons to learn, and this just was my particular, in this part of the equation, that was my job.
There was one episode, I haven't brought this up to you, but we have a few minutes to kill, so let's talk about it. There was one episode that we did about twin flames and stuff, and you said, well, maybe we are twin flames, and I said, no, I don't think so. Do you know that the more time that goes on, I actually do believe that that's possible? Because look at the things in our lives. Like I said, I was never going to have kids because I didn't want to repeat. You said, I'm going to have kids because I don't want to repeat. I want to. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
It's like there's all these weird things that like fit together. I don't know. I'm starting to see these weird
just
things.
had this very strong feeling that I was like, I could be involved in stopping
Right.
certain things.
Me too.
That would stop.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
And I just immediately accept the challenge. Like, I knew I was going to have my own, and the goal was to not repeat the things that were happening to me at that moment when I had that thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was no question in my mind. I knew I was going to have them.
And there was no question in mine that I wasn't. You asked me that a couple weeks ago. You said there was never, and there was after my mom died, I thought about it. I mean, you may
natural.
even at some point thought, I'm not going to have kids, never mind. Because you can't go back and forth. But I will tell you that 99.9% of my life, I said I'm not going to. And I'm so glad that I stuck with that. And for me, it was, like you said, cutting it off.
Right.
You're stopping it one way and I'm stopping it another way.
Right.
So we chose to deal with it different, but that was the path for me, and this was the path for you, and
it's worked out great.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I didn't want really more than one at some point. I think maybe even before Marina, something said one would be good.
Yeah.
But when we met, we could have, but I waited a little bit to make sure that was something you definitely didn't want.
No, I don't think you believed me, but yeah.
I didn't really want him either, but I would have,
No, I don't.
So you would be happy. But once you were like, no, I'm good, I was like, okay, let's get those things snipped.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, then we don't have to worry about it. Because, it definitely was, it just with everything, for me. I mean, my brother still may have kids. I don't know what his plans are, but he's shown me nothing to make me think that he's any different from me, that the damage that was done to him, he just wants it to end here and he doesn't want to pass it on.
But it's not to say I'm perfect either, because I know that even in my job as a parent, I've done things that irritate my kid that she's going,
sure.
I don't want to be like that.
Of course.
I mean,
and good, don't carry on our crap,
right.
you know?
It's like, view it like as a filtering system, kind of.
Exactly. I think that all the generations do that, and it's whether you actually stick with that you're not going to be like that, or if you fall into the pattern. And for me, I was falling into my mom's pattern for a while. And so I feel like this whole spiritual awakening was kind of a way of pulling me out so that I didn't go down the same paths that my mom went down, you know?
Right.
Because it is really easy to slip into, especially when you don't see it. That's why having to really take a look at it and see what the problem is one of the first steps. Because if you don't even see where the problem is, how can you fix it?
True.
You know?
Very true.
Yep.
Cool.
Whew. So I hope that I did an okay job of explaining that, because it is really new to me and it is really confusing.
Right.
And so if there are any questions, please feel free to message me.
Well, and we can do it again. And
Yeah.
like you said, hopefully figure out, well, we will
Yeah.
be able to figure out how to have people like Teresa on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that we can have some different kind of episodes too. I'd really like to do a crystal episode and know nothing about them and don't want to botch that. So we have, I have a client that I used to do pet sitting for that I want to try and get on the show, because she does crystal work, a lot of crystal
cool.
work. Yeah. So this would be great if we could get this up and get some people on our show. We'd love that. That should be a goal for the new year for us.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, before we say goodbye to our friends, would you like to share your page really fast?
Yes. So you can find everything on my website, SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. You can also email us at the show, spiritualjoneses@gmail.com.
Cool. Very
And
good.
you.
djonesartcollection.com for the web, for my art, and at djonesartcollection for Instagram and Facebook, gypsybrown.com for the music, at gypsybrown. Got that wrong. Gypsy Brown at Gypsy Brown Music for Instagram, and at Gypsy Brown Band for Facebook. And that's all I got.
Yay.
Cool. Well, we hope everybody got something out of this.
Yes,
I
we
did.
did.
It's very interesting.
Good.
I'd like to hear more.
Me too.
And especially about that cleansing thing.
Yes.
That'd be cool.
For sure.
But we hope everybody has a great week.
We do.
And until next week, peace and love.